How many playable fighters are in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Now, most of you will hear this question and say that with DLC there's 89 characters, duh. Question answered. Done and dusted. End of story. But what I want to know is how many characters are actually playable. What do I mean by that? Let's take Toon Link, for example. Which Toon Link is this one? Most people would say that it's the one from Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. This would be correct. But why can't it also be the Link from the Minish Cap? Or Link from Four Swords Adventures? That's 3 distinct Links just from the default outfit alone. And there's more than just these examples. My goal is to see just how many characters we can say Smash really has. And it's a larger task than I think most of you will even realize. I think it's important that we start with some rules for establishing how we determine if someone gets added to the tally. First off, you see this handy little list right here? This is on the Smash Bros. Wiki and is edited by the community. Pretty much every YouTuber that makes a video on Smash outfits and alts will just read verbatim what is listed here. This outfit for DK, for example, is based off a real-life gorilla. I mean, it says right there that's what it is, so that must be the fact, right? Did Nintendo themselves confirm this? Well, I think just more or less take every reference with a grain of salt and try and use more critical thinking on some of these. We won't take these descriptions as gospel, but they are good enough facsimile to get the ball rolling. Let's start with rule number 1A. If there is only one of an established character, then the alternative costumes don't count. References to other characters are just that, references. So this is Mario. No one will disagree with that. This is Mario in his wedding outfit. Still just Mario in different clothes, not a new character. This purple alt is a reference to Waluigi, but that's just a reference. We won't be counting this as Waluigi. These alts have to be just close enough to justify inclusion as another character. Now, you may have noticed the little A besides rule number 1 and be a little confused. Well, that leads to rule number 1B. If a character was specifically given their own fighter slot, they get added to the tally. Dr. Mario is Mario, but Nintendo saw it fit to make him his own fighter. So if we had a running tally going right now, Mario is 1, Dr. Mario is 2. Same goes for Samus and Zero Suit Samus or Zelda and Sheik. Canonically the same characters, but we will count them as 2 for the purposes of this video. Now for rule number 2. Transformation characters will be counted inversely. Pokemon Trainer is 3 or 4 characters technically. Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard for the fighters, and the trainer themselves as a non-combatant. Pyra and Mithra are in a similar boat as the player can switch between them freely, but they only take up 1 character slot on the select screen.
That still only counts as 1!
Rule number 3. If something is a species and not a specific character, we will only take the amount of plausible alts as the fighter number. What do I mean by that? Well, tell me, how many Yoshi are there? How many Pikachu? Do I add an asterisk and say, I don't know, at least 600? That is correct, but because there's no realistic upper limit or definable answer, we need a way to limit it. There's 8 selectable Pikachus of plausible color, so I would say 8 Pikachus. What do I mean by plausible color? They may be slightly different shades, but these are close enough to realistic that they count. Incineroar, though, does not have a green coloration anywhere in canon, so we wouldn't count all 8 Incineroars. Make sense? Finally, how do we count Mii fighters? Because we can have near infinite combinations, there's no upper limit on the characters we can make. The fact that you can have Michael Jackson versus Michael Jordan versus the Hulk versus Slender Man versus Gohan versus Macho Man Randy Savage versus Luke Skywalker versus your younger brother that you have to take with you while you hang out with your friends because he doesn't get to go out and do things on his own, and because I said so. God, Mom! He's so lame! I was going to try and hang out with the popular girl at school and he's going to make me look bad. Wait. Where was I again? Oh yeah, the fact we can realistically have representation of all these characters not even scratch the surface of possibilities is precisely why there needs to be rule number 4. Mii fighters won't be counted as the base Mii, just the outfit. So the default generic Mii sword fighter isn't a character. Even then the outfits don't all count. This Mii ninja? Not a character. This Mii witch? Not a character. This Mii Tifa? That's counting as Tifa. Mii Dante? That's Dante. Mii Barrett with the Geno outfit and Altair's hood? Not a character, though Barrett, Geno, and Altair will count as individual characters in their full outfits. Also, as you can see here, we can make a Breath of the Wild Link Mii sword fighter. Since the real Link exists, we will be completely ignoring this Mii version of him. So even with these rules I established, I think I'm within my power to make an exception or two to the rules, but we won't worry about that until we get there. So let's get started.
Mario!
So to start off the count, we have Mario. I promise it will get more interesting.
Donkey Kong!
Of course, we have the tried and true DK that everyone knows and loves. He's been the Donkey Kong since Donkey Kong Country and is what people think of when they hear the name. What's that? Donkey Kong Arcade? You guys see this miserable old bastard right here? Well, that's Cranky Kong, you say. Correct! But did you know he was also the original Donkey Kong? DK's third alt is supposed to be the original arcade coloring, so we're actually going to count this as Cranky Kong, aka DK the First. Now, you may remember the Donkey Kong Jr. games, and unlike what you might think, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is incorrect in stating that Cranky is DK's father. He's actually his grandfather. Donkey Kong Jr. is not our DK as a child, but his father. Our DK is actually Donkey Kong the Third. Now, we don't have a DK with a signature DK Jr. shirt, but clothes don't really matter. I know that Alt 8 is based on DK Jr. math, or even the default appearance is also close enough to count as DK Jr. Hopefully this whole counting thing is making sense to you guys, because some of these get nuts. Alt 2 is supposedly like a real gorilla and... oh my god. Harambe?
Link!
Now, some of these won't be completely one-to-one. I'm going to have to kind of put the beer goggles on for Link and Zelda. There are technically multiple different Links and Zeldas within canon, and I plan on doing a more in-depth video on the different canon versions of them. But for now, we'll look at the different, more realistic Links. Obviously, this is the same Link from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The Link from Twilight Princess was actually the Smash representative for the previous two games, as most people know. The problem is he doesn't actually have a render anymore. Link's 6th alt is the closest to his outfit, and that's what the wiki also says it's supposed to be. Link's 7th alt is again not a perfect fit, but I think with those previously mentioned beer goggles, we can say that this is Skyward Sword Link. Alternatively, the Alt 2 outfit is also similar enough to count, so take your pick. Even though Hyrule Warriors isn't canon to the Zelda franchise, it is a game that has an official release, so it's very appropriate to include that original Link in our count. With the beer goggles back on, I think we could justify Alt 2 as this particular Link. Obviously, the hair is a little off and we don't have the signature scarf, but I'm going to count him. There's only one other realistic Link in the franchise, believe it or not, but he actually has a different representative on this list, so we will be moving on to some new characters that aren't really Links. Look at Alt 4. Even though it's supposed to be Link's transformation mask and Majora's Mask itself, I'm going to count the Fierce Deity as his own character. If Mikau is the spirit behind the Zora mask and Darmani is the Goron mask, it's logical to think the Fierce Deity is a canonical figure in the series. Now for Shadow Link. We have one for Ocarina of Time, Hyrule Warriors has one, and there are 3 for the Interlopers and Twilight Princess. This cutscene is not to be taken like this is literally Link in 3 Dark Links, it's just a metaphor, but we're counting them anyways.
Samus!
This should be simple, right? There's only one Samus Aran, and with Rule 1B, we only get 2 if we include Zero Suit Samus, right? Wrong. Yes, we'll get Samus and Zero Suit Samus when we get to her, but as a huge Metroid fan, I'm telling you it gets a little complicated with some of these characters. In Metroid Fusion, you might recognize this scary scene. This is the SA-X, an X-Parasite duplicate of Samus herself. Now, we don't have an actual number on how many of them there are, but the partner you have in the game, AI Adam Elkovich, says there are no fewer than 10 of these abominations on board the ship. There could be more, but he definitely says no fewer. It's possible that every appearance of this character in the game is in fact a different SA-X every time. We're going to add all 10 to the list and call it good. Another Samus that we can add is actually the character of Gandreda. At one point in the game, she mimics Samus in her Varia suit before Admiral Castor Dane berates her for doing so, but I'm going to count her.
Dark Samus!
Easy peasy. She's the main antagonist of Metroid Prime 2 and 3. She's made from an amalgamation of Samus's Phazon suit in Prime 1, Metroid Prime itself, a ton of Phazon and Samus's own DNA.
Yoshi!
This is the first character that Rule 3 was made for. In Super Mario World alone, there's dozens of Yoshis. I don't think we can say that they're all the same character, though, right? If we look at Mario Kart, Mario Party, or Mario Sunshine, for example, we have to assume these are all different Yoshis, right?
Right!
I don't actually know for sure, so I'm going to count each Yoshi alt as a character and move on.
Kirby!
Just one Kirby, right? Should be easy, right? Yes, we have the main pink Kirby, but did you know the yellow one has an official name? It's its own distinct character named Kibi. Kibi actually makes multiple appearances throughout the series as the official player too. In the game, Kirby in the Amazing Mirror, the character of Dark Meta Knight, we'll get there, somehow splits Kirby into four, similar to what happens to Link when he picks up the Force Sword. We have to officially add another yellow Kirby as well as a green and red Kirby because of this. In Kirby Battle Royale, there exists an item called the Kirby Printer that creates more distinct clones of Kirby. Therefore, we will be adding more yellow, blue, green, white, and orange to the list. For games that have other playable Kirbys that aren't story-related, we aren't counting them. Going back to Kirby in the Amazing Mirror, we also find that there is a dark Kirby called Shadow Kirby. I know that this character has different eyes and shoes from the alt found in Smash Bros., but I'm going to invoke the beer goggles clause and say that alt 8 is close enough to count.
Fox!
Though we have Fox, we can also count his father, James McCloud, using the same outfit. Throw on some sweet shades like I wear, and it's the same guy.
Pikachu!
They're close enough to count as different Pikachus, give or take green or red tinting to their fur, so we're going to add 8 to our total. As much as we love the Pokemon anime, no, Ash's Pikachu does not count here. Detective Pikachu is originally a game character, but we don't have a Pikachu here with the right hat or a crippling caffeine addiction to justify it.
Luigi!
Our boy Luigi should be a simple case like Mario. There's only one of him, right? You see alt 6 there? Yep. I'm going to do it. I'm going to create an exception to my reference rule and say that this is Waluigi. You may not like it, but don't worry, I won't make this a habit. I know this is just Luigi in a purple costume, but with some heavy, and I mean heavy, beer goggles. We can say this is Waluigi. Hey, this is potentially the closest we'll ever get to him as a playable fighter without mods.
Ness!
Of course, Ness is basically the face of the Earthbound series, but did you know that Earthbound is just the American title for Mother 2 in Japan? Of course, that means that there was a Mother 1 over there, and it was eventually brought over as Earthbound Beginnings. Speaking about Mother, this ugly bastard right here is a face only a mother could love. No, that's not Ness. This is Nintendo from Mother 1. Ness. Nintendo. Oh, I see what you guys did there. You think you're funny? Starving kids in Africa and you think you're goddamn funny? You're sick. Anyways, I think that Ness's default appearance is actually close enough to Nintendo's as well to justify saying that this is Nintendo with our handy-dandy beer goggles.
Captain Falcon!
Captain Falcon is one of the fastest characters in the game. He's so fast, in fact, that the bad guys decided to create a clone of him called Blood Falcon, who we'll represent with Alt 3. What you guys probably didn't know is that one of the characters from F-Zero, Rick Wheeler, ends up becoming the second Captain Falcon. It's not the guy's name, apparently, but more like a title, so Rick is also going on the list. Too bad his Alt 6 outfit is just a reference to Jodie Summers and not an actual render of hers, because I think Smash needs more female representation. But let me ask you this, dear viewer. Who has the nicer ass?
Show me your moves!
Jigglypuff!
Finally, we reach the last character from the original Smash Bros., and we have so much more to go. Tell me again why I decided to do this to myself? Rule number 3 says that we should only account enough puffs of the Jiggly variety to fill out each alt. Much like Pikachu, each alt is close enough in color to be plausible, so each alt counts as a different one, adding 8 to our total.
Peach!
Finally, back to simplicity. The wiki page says that her alt 3 appearance is based off Pauline, but it's only a basic color reference. We won't count it, but we will count Peach herself.
Daisy!
Daisy similarly doesn't have any other alts that count as a new character, so she counts as 1.
Bowser!
Bowser should be easy, right? With Mario characters that generally only count as 1 character. Well, yes, Bowser counts, but did you know that this fake Bowser in the Lost Levels is apparently Bowser's brother? He's also been referred to as fake Bowser, but regardless, he apparently counts as a real character. The guy never really appears again, so take his appearance with a grain of salt and let's move on.
Ice Climbers!
Rule 1B, Nana and Popo should only count as 1 character. Are you happy?
Sheik.
This is it. This is where shit gets convoluted. This Sheik only exists as Ocarina of Time Zelda. Do I still try to find a representative for the Zelda within Zelda herself, or is Sheik the sole representative of Ocarina of Time Zelda? I think in this situation I will count Sheik as a separate character from Zelda, as the developers did when they split her character off in the first place. You can hate that choice if you want, but I'm doing it anyways.
Zelda.
Much like Link, I plan on doing a video on all the canonical Zeldas in the future. Unlike Link, though, I don't have multiple Links within Smash to split up his count. I have one Zelda to represent all Zeldas. Also similar to Link is that we've had different Zeldas to represent her throughout Smash. In Ultimate in particular, she is based on her appearance in A Link Between Worlds. This same Zelda can also be used for A Link to the Past Zelda. No matter how I try to use the beer goggles, I can't see any of the alts as Breath of the Wild Zelda, so she's unfortunately absent from this list. And believe me, I'm actively trying to make every Zelda work here. The beer goggles do make it somewhat believable that her Alt 4 works as representation for most Zeldas. Most Zeldas, even the Toon Zeldas, all kind of have that same or similar default pink dress outfit. I might as well count them all even if they aren't exact matches. That adds the Zeldas from Skyward Sword, the Minish Cap, Tetra's Zelda look in Wind Waker, Four Swords Adventures, Spirit Tracks, and Ocarina of Time. Straining with the beer goggles even more, we can count Hyrule Warrior Zelda under the same alt if we just ignore the lack of armor, and Alt 7 is clearly supposed to still represent the old Twilight Princess look. Who else is left? Well, there is the Zeldas from the first two games. Even though the NES games have the same Link, they actually have different Zeldas. Zelda 1 has the Zelda from that Link's time. Easy enough, her appearance reflects what magic rings Link has collected, so her dress would work with Alt 2, Alt 5, or Alt 8. Zelda 2 Zelda, however, is actually a character that has been in an enchanted sleep for hundreds or even thousands of years within the game's lore. Her red dress is closest to Alt 2, so that's what we're going with. What about Echoes of Wisdom? I considered adding Zelda and Link from this game, except I think there needs to be a definitive endpoint to consider. Do I make addendum videos for the rest of the time because characters in all series could eventually have new characters that could be represented in the future? In my opinion, time stops a day of release or whenever the last update to a game is made. I think a fair compromise is if the game was released before the last update, it's fair game. Now, Echoes of Wisdom was released on September 26, 2024. Fairly recent. Sora was the last DLC fighter, and he was released at the end of 2021, so surely Echoes of Wisdom count. Well, shit. Update 13.0.3, the latest update, was on October 8th, 2024. By my own rules, I guess they count. We can throw Zelda in the same generic Alt 4 group, and as much as I want to, the Breath of the Wild Zelda is the only one I can't even pretend has representation here.
Dr. Mario.
Just Mario, but because of Rule 1B, he counts as his own character.
Pichu.
Like Pikachu and Jigglypuff before, I'm counting all 8 Pichu as distinct Pichu.
Falco.
Just one character again. Finally, something easy.
Marth.
Again, an easy count. The white outfit is a reference to the character of Leaf, though it's just a reference and won't actually count.
Lucina.
Lucina has many outfit and hair recolors to represent a multitude of characters, but unfortunately we can't count them. Just her.
Young Link.
The hero of time, baby. This Link is the only one who is specifically one Link only. The question is, do we count his Alt 8 as another character? We'll count it as representation of the 4 Dark Link illusions in Oracle of Ages. Should these count as real Dark Links? You know what I think?
Shut up!
Ganondorf.
Spoiler alert. Ganondorf will also have his own video discussing how many Ganons there are. There is surprisingly few, however. But what I can count off the top of my head, there are only 3. The main one that's in almost everything, the Four Swords Adventures Ganon and Tears of the Kingdom Ganondorf. The Four Swords Adventure Ganon is only ever seen as pig form, so he's out. And no, the alt with the blue skin doesn't count. Much like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom Zelda, I can't justify representing the Tears Ganondorf with any of these alts pictured. He's too different. I can, however, count the main one.
Mewtwo.
Mewtwo is going to be our first Pokemon character where we don't just take the 8 alts and call it good. I don't consider the Pokemon Stadium recolors as canonical colors Mewtwo can have. They seem to be just a quirk of those games. The default is, of course, good enough, and Alt-6 is close enough to the shiny coloring to count as another. And I know that Alt-8 is supposed to be a reference to Shadow Lugia from Gale of Darkness, but with my beer goggles on, I'm gonna say it's close enough to count as Shadow Mewtwo from Pokken Tournament. I don't care what you say, I'm counting it.
Roy!
You would think this counts as just one character, but I'm counting both Roy and his father Eliwood. Roy resembles his father so much already that his Alt-5 makes it seem like he could be his father.
Crom!
Crom may be an Echo Fighter, but he's his own man, damn it.
Mr. Game & Watch!
Are each Game & Watch character a unique person? Probably. Is Mr. Game & Watch just an amalgam of all these characters made to represent them all? Almost certainly. Am I going to count him as one character and move on without any further elaboration? You've got it.
Meta Knight!
Not only is Meta Knight his own character, but in Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, an evil version of Meta Knight is one of the primary antagonists of the game. Dark Meta Knight, yes, his name really is that creative, is the one that splits Kirby into 4 in that game. This Alt-8 even has a distinct slit in his mask to represent this other character. Alt-7 here also represents another character in Galactonite, another unique villain.
Hit!
Back to simple numbers with Kid Icarus characters. With only 3 games, it's hard for the characters to represent multiple characters.
Dark Pit!
Dark Pit himself only appears in 1 game, so he's even easier to count.
Zero Suit Samus!
Wow, it's kind of nice having a streak of such easy counting. Unlike her and her power suit, there's no X-Parasite clones of her Zero Suit.
Wario!
Whether he's in his plumbing outfit or biker outfit, there's no mistaking that odor. There's only one Wario, and the world's better off that way.
Snake!
Most people look at Snake and think, this must be easy, he's the guy from Metal Gear Solid. And every single Metal Gear fan is either laughing in your face or rocking back and forth in the fetal position. The most popular iteration of Snake, and definitely the most played, has to be Solid Snake. By the way, his real name is David. Not exactly a cool name, but he's got a voice to make your grandma wet, so what do I know? Solid Snake is actually a clone of another character known as Naked Snake, or Big Boss. He's the Snake you play as in Metal Gear Solid 3 and 5. Most of the alts can work for this, so take your pick. The fact that there's 2 different Snakes that look the same is probably the reason why he's listed as Snake in Smash instead of Solid Snake specifically.
You look like a snake!
The series gets extremely complicated trying to explain. You practically need a degree in bullshit to understand all of it. Honestly, I'm better off moving on, even though I'm sure there's some obscure one-off clone I forgot to mention. Don't worry, someone in the comments will always tell me how wrong I am.
Ike!
Even though there are 2 different versions of Ike with about a 3-year age gap between them, there's still just one guy.
Pokemon Trainer!
If it was just the Pokemon trainers themselves, I conclude all 8 alts and move on. But because the trainer themselves count as part of the character, it's actually going to affect things quite a bit. There's a near infinite amount of trainers that all look the same if you count them as generic playable characters. The models themselves can be linked to 2 specific canon characters though, Red and Leaf. Now I know that Alt 3, for example, is a reference to Ethan/Gold, but it's just a palette swap reference as the model doesn't actually change design. I think the default outfit and Alt 2 are the most logical choices, even though it feels like I should count them as 4 characters each. Rule 1B says that they count as 2 characters total, so that's what it'll be.
Diddy Kong!
There's no party like a Diddy party.
He's angry, horny, Beato's wild, but women won't date him cause he looks like a child.
Lucas!
Fans have been asking for an official Mother 3 English release since the game came out in 2006. Nintendo loves to tease people by putting the game out on Virtual Console and Nintendo Switch Online. In Japan only. Lucas goes on the count anyways, as well as his twin brother Klaus with that Alt 2.
Sonic!
The fastest thing alive, but is he fast enough to outrun fan disappointment in his moveset that remains unchanged in 3 Smash titles? I'm counting Sonic, of course, but does his Alt 5 come close enough to Shadow to count? Even with the beer goggles on, I don't think it's close enough, so we end his count with 1.
King DDD!
In Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, King DDD has 4 looks depending on controller order and multiplayer mode. There's no canon precedent set to say that these are anything but cute palette swaps instead of new characters, so we're only counting 1 big bad penguin.
Olimar!
We aren't counting the Pikmin as characters, especially since something with less life expectancy than a housefly shouldn't really count.
Elf!
We also have Elf, but I don't think we can count every Pikmin character, even if these alts are clear references to other characters in the series.
Lucario!
Here's an interesting one. Even with as uninteresting as Lucario's alts are, remember what I said about Rule 3 and species having to have plausible colorings to count? We can obviously count Lucario's default look, but in my opinion, alts 3, 5, and 6 are close enough to count, much like the different shades of Pikachu. Alts 2, 4, 7, and 8, however, are not realistic to the world of Pokemon. And no, the Island of Pink Pokemon from the anime can't justify Alt 8, as that's anime exclusive, and Lucario wasn't even a thing at that time.
Rob!
God, I hate Rob. Joke characters annoy me, and he was a toy, not even a video game character. I know I just pissed off all the Rob mains out there, but I hate this character. Well, we have to count NES Rob and Famicom Rob. There could almost be an argument for Alt 8 being close to what the Virtual Boy looks like, but I'm not counting it. As much as I hate Rob, you want to know the ironic part? On Ultimate's Classic mode, my third highest score I have is with Rob. I got way better results with him, only having played him when absolutely necessary all these years, mind you, than many characters I play with way more often. Why did I do so well with him?
What? What the fuck? Toon Link!
Oh dear God. This is the one character I was most afraid of. Toon Link basically represents almost the entire selection of Links in the Zelda series. Trust me, it's a lot. Like I mentioned in the intro, most people think of the Hero of Winds from Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass when they see this face. But this little bastard here counts for so much more. We can also count the Links from the Minish Cap and Spirit Tracks, and you may not agree with it, but the Hero of Men that we get in the Minish Cap's backstory is also going to go here. He may not be named Link, he may not wear a cap, but come on, this is basically a Link unofficially. He's a canonical figure, so he counts. All 8 counts for A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, and Echoes of Wisdom. Apparently Nintendo updated the timeline to say that the Oracle games are now no longer the same Link as Link to the Past or Link's Awakening anymore? I don't know if I buy that, so for now I'm still counting them as the same character, but if enough of you think that they should be counted separately, I can always retcon it like Nintendo does. Speaking of retcons, apparently the green Link from Triforce Heroes is the same Link from A Link Between Worlds. Yeah, I see. It's all become clear to me. Nintendo's so full of shit. Whatever. I guess we will count it as the same guy, even though he's got a completely different look. But what about these other random assholes? According to lore, they aren't just the empty husks you got in single-player mode, because who else would want to play this shitty game with you? No, they're 2 unrelated guys who happen to look the same, be the same age, and have the same name. God, Triforce Hero sucks ass. But Red and Blue go on the list too. Speaking of Red and Blue, if we had Purple as well, we get 2 separate groups of 4 Links associated with the 4 Sword. That's right. 4 Swords and 4 Swords Adventures are actually 2 separate canon times. The exact same shit happens and splits Link into 4. These are separate Links. Now why doesn't Minish Cap's Link get 3 more Links on the counter? Link actually makes the 4 Sword in that damn game. Well, that's because these Links are more or less just illusions. Look what happens when you walk into a wall. See? They disappear. They mirror the main Link exactly. These other Links have tangible bodies that can independently interact with their world, so they count. I don't care if they were one guy originally, they're all being counted as separate characters. We're going to count Alt 5 as Link from the original 2 games. Dark Toon Link will also count for his first appearance in Zelda 2. The original 4 Swords game has these 4 abominations. They're basically Dark Link with colored tunics and therefore wrong looking. We can put on our beer goggles and count them anyways, knowing that they are wearing different clothes. There's also a Dark Link in the Castletown Take 'em All On minigame in Spirit Tracks as well. Now, for whatever reason, Nintendo decided to make Shadow Links as well. They serve the same purpose and more or less have the same design, so why? I literally don't understand why there's a distinction, but there it is. Do we count the Street Pass Shadow Links from A Link Between Worlds? What about the Amiibo one in the Link's Awakening remake? I don't think so. What about the 3 in the Den of Trials from Triforce Heroes? I actually think they count, as they are in the game itself without needing other 3DSs or Amiibo to make appear. Now for 4 Swords Adventures... Jesus Christ. How do we know if these are all new Shadow Links every time they appear? Are they the same few that keep respawning? Will Nintendo ever just settle on a timeline that don't continuously retcon? Well, we don't have a definitive answer, but I at least have an answer. The amount of Shadow Links throughout the game isn't something Google can answer, so I did the only thing I could think of: play 4 Swords Adventures. First off, there are a finite amount of Shadow Links in the game, so I can't use Rule 3 to say that they are a species. There's also so many of them that it's an absolute pain in the ass to count them. Generally, 4 is the maximum at any given time, but in the last fight with them, there's actually around 6 Shadow Links on screen at once, so there's more than 4. Usually when you beat them, they spin around and disappear in a puff of smoke, meaning that I think that's you actually destroying them, so the Dark Mirror has to make new ones. How can I say this? Well, when you beat certain ones, especially towards the beginning of the game, they actually go to the Dark World and run away. Therefore, we did not kill those ones. There are also ones that show up with these big-ass bombs that aren't killable, so I just assume they're the same ones that appear in later fights. Taking all of this into consideration, I counted 83 distinct Shadow Links throughout the game. Yes, you heard that right, 83. I tried to take into account when they disappeared and when they ran away. Any that ran away I just assumed were in later fights like I already mentioned. Now there's a chance and likelihood that I miscounted along the way. I'm only one man, I'm not perfect. If any of you watching count differently, I'm open to correcting my count in the future if I'm wrong. For now, our count goes way up. I hope we don't have anything that ridiculous again.
Wolf.
My boy! Finally back to simplistic numbers. All is right with the world again.
Villager.
Now we are actually going to invoke Rule 3 for the villagers. But they're not a species, they're individuals, I hear you say. Okay, let me ask you this. How many human villagers are canonically in Animal Crossing? What's that? You don't have an answer. Exactly my point. I'll give one count to all 8 alts and call it even.
Mega Man.
I know that there's been multiple different Mega Men throughout the series, but most of the others actually have real representation as Mii costumes, so that's where we'll count them. For now, this is where we put the original.
Wii Fit Trainer.
I'm counting one guy and one girl. The alts don't matter because it's just clothes on creepy mannequin people. They're basically not even characters.
Rosalina and Luma.
Rule 1B. I know that Rosalina only counts as one character anyways, but Lumas are a species. Even if I wanted to count them as a separate character, there's too many to actually count, and I'm not going to recount Rosalina multiple times.
Little Mac.
I had briefly considered including his wireframe look as its own character, like it's a training program, but I wouldn't include Microsoft Sam either. Where was I going with this?
Greninja.
Default Greninja obviously goes on the list, but I'm going to say that Alt 8 is close enough with the beer goggles to count as another. Alt 4 is also close enough to Shiny Greninja to also count, but that's about it.
Palutena.
Easy peasy, lemmy squeezy.
Pac-Man.
Sadly, there's no Pac-Man dressed in drag to represent his wife, or Pac-Man with a mustache, or Pac-Man with that stupid little propeller hat. Basically, as easy as it would have been to add like one feature per alt to represent his family, Bandai Namco didn't do it. Unfortunately, that means there's only one sole Pac person on this ride.
Robin.
Male and female. That's about all there is to say. I know you can only have one or the other per playthrough, but you can use either.
Shulk.
Right! Nothing's gonna stop me! Let's go!
Wait a minute. He's British? How did I not know this before starting my research? My whole life is a lie.
Bowser Jr.
I'm going to save you all the agony of listening to the announcer say all of the Koopalings' names back to back. So I'll have them say them all at once while I add to the count.
Bowser Jr. Duck Hunt.
Rule 1B states that they count as one character, but that doesn't mean each pair isn't a plausible duck-dog pair that could actually happen. I'm counting them all.
Ryu. Ken.
Can you count Ken and Violent Ken as the same character because they are? I'll see myself out.
Cloud.
Does Cloud count as both Cloud and Zack Fair? It gets a little confusing with the memory thing, so I'm just going to add a 1 and leave it at that.
Corin!
Same as what I did with Robin, male and female each count.
Bayonetta!
So this gets a little confusing. Bayonetta 3 opened the floodgates for multiverse shenanigans, and as such, how do we count her? There are like 4 Bayonettas in that game alone, as well as her little kid version in Bayonetta 2. And there's also the Cereza from the recent Bayonetta Origins game. But the problem is they're all the same character from different universes or times or something, so what do? Look at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'd be comfortable saying that these are distinct characters. Now let's look at Back to the Future. Is this Marty McFly a different character from this Marty McFly? Lacking some of the experiences, yes, but he will become the other one eventually. So here's the compromise. This Bayonetta will be counted as a separate character from our Bayonetta. These Bayonetta 1 and 2 incarnations will be considered the same as our Bayonetta. I think that's a fair compromise to make. Fairly reasonable. I will also count Alt 5 as Jean, because I think with the beer goggles on, she's got a close enough look and style to justify it. Go ahead and tell me how wrong I am in the comments for including Jean, but not the other 2 Bayonettas. Go on. I'll wait.
Inkling!
Inklings are a species, so all 8 get added as per Rule 3.
Ridley!
One of my favorite villains from one of my favorite series. Ridley may be generally the same alien dragon thing in most appearances, but he's actually been cloned in Metroid Other M, aka the Metroid that shall not be named. He also built a robot version of himself in Metroid Zero Mission as shown by Alt 8. Talk about a narcissist. There is an X-Parasite version of him from Fusion that we can represent with his Alt 4 and a nice set of beer goggles.
Simon!
As much as I love the Trevor Belmont reference with Alt 8, I think we can only count Simon himself here.
Richter!
Just like Simon, I lament the references to other characters, but alas, we can only use Richter.
King K. Rool!
There's other Kremlings within the series that are all similar to K. Rool himself, but there's no mistaking that rotund figure.
Isabel!
I have to make sure to get this count right before the Doomslayer decides to rip and tear me to shreds on her behalf.
Incineroar!
The Incineroar alts are too far removed from what's canon that I can't count most of them. We will take the default in Alt 8, which resembles its shiny form, though.
Bad kitty!
Piranha Plant!
I'm just going to count all of these as part of Rule 3 and call it good.
Joker!
Challenger Pack 1, we're getting close. If we use Rule 1B, then we count him and Arsenio Hall as 1.
Hero!
There are 4 distinct alts here, but I don't think each pair of their palette swap should count for anything other than references.
Banjo and Kazooie!
While Kazooie is part of a species known as a Breagle, she is always paired with Banjo. Rule 1B means we count them as one character and can't pick and choose which half the duo represents another character. That means no other Breagles will be counted, and unfortunately we can't count the greatest video game character of all time, Bottles.
Terry!
You know, it looks like Pokemon trainers started lifting. Get those gains, bro!
Violet!
Hey, I love Fire Emblem, but I'm not in love with Fire Emblem, you know what I mean? Can we please stop? We're going to count the male and female characters just like the other protagonists, but for the love of God, no more Fire Emblem characters.
Min Min!
Stretch Armstrong got decidedly more Asian and female.
Steve!
I understand that Minecraft is the biggest game of all time, but I just don't like it. Well, since any one of these characters could be made in Character Creator, and some things like zombies and the Endermen are basically species, I'm going to count all 8 alts and move on. I'm not figuring out exactly how many zombies or Endermen there might be. Maybe infinite, maybe a finite amount. Who knows? Do I also have to count Jack Black Steve? No. No one wants that. Will I have the announcer say all of their names at once like I did with the Koopalings?
Sephiroth!
Hell yeah. The question is, do we count the 3 remnants of Sephiroth from Advent Children? I'm going to say no. They technically are him anyways. It's kind of like the same thing with Bayonetta. The remakes are technically an alternate timeline of events, but I'm still counting just one Sephiroth and Cloud. And no, their appearances in Kingdom Hearts aren't going to count as separate characters, even if KH1 Sephiroth was once an NSYNC.
Pyron! Mithra!
That still only counts as one!
Kazuya!
Heihachi was the rep for the PS2 version of Soul Calibur and was pretty much the face of the series. His grandson Jin is almost like the new face of the series, but you know what? Kazuya has been there from the beginning, baby. Every installment except for 3 for some reason? Guess he was too busy throwing other people's babies off cliffs or something.
Sora!
They said it couldn't happen. Despite Disney saying no way to any Disney character appearing in the game anywhere at all, we did get the iconic Mickey ears on the keychain. One sword account? Simple and clean.
Knee Brawler!
Final stretch, baby. I'm going to list these all in a lightning style round. Akira and Jackie from Virtua Fighter, Bomberman, Callie from Splatoon, Creeper from Minecraft, Flying Man from Earthbound, Heihachi, Yori Yagami from King of Fighters, Knuckles the Echidna, Nia or Naya from Xenoblade, Ninjara, Ribbon Girl, and Springman from ARMS, Generic Pig from Minecraft, Ryo Sakazaki from Art of Fighting, Shantae, Skull Kid, Team Rocket Female, Team Rocket Male, and Tifa make 20 more. I was stuck on Toad though because they're a species and there are distinct playable Toads throughout the series, so which way do I go? Ultimately, I'm going to abide by my 1 per costume rule and count 1 Toad.
Me Sword Fighter!
Same as last time. Here we go. Aerith, Altair from Assassin's Creed. Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, Ashley from WarioWare, the Black Knight from Fire Emblem, and not that 90s movie with Martin Lawrence. But could you imagine? Dante! Seriously, he needs to be in Smash. No ifs, ands, or buts. Where was I? Oh yeah, the Dragonborn from Skyrim, Dunban and Rex from Xenoblade, Gil from Babylonian Castle Saga, whatever the hell that is, Goemon.
Talk about rocking out with your cock out. I bet you $50 that's the guy who made Moemon back there. That's Mr. Moemon.
Male and female monster hunters, Isaac from Golden Sun, Lip from Panel de Pon, Gesundheit. My boy Lloyd Irving, wake up. Nakaruru from Samurai Showdown, generic nameless protagonist from Personas 3 and 4, Takamaru from the mysterious Murasume Castle, don't act like you don't know that one, Travis Touchdown, Veronica from Dragon Quest, Vince from Art Academy, aka not Bob Ross, Rudy from Kid Icarus, male and female Yiga clan members, and 0 for a total of 26. Yes! My god, that was a lot. Who are these people? What is going on?
Me Gunner!
This is it. The light at the end of the tunnel. Can you believe it? 1 category to go. We have Barrett, unfortunately not in his sailor outfit, Chibi Robo, Cuphead, the Doomslayer, Gino from Mario RPG, KK Downing from KK Slider from Animal Crossing, Mary from Splatoon, Megaman.exe, surprisingly not a creepypasta, Protoman, Raymark 3 from Custom Robo, remember that shit? No, neither do I. Sakiyama Mia Mamma Mia from Sin and Punishment, Sans from Undertale, or did we count him in the Nest section? Tales from Sonic the Hedgehog, Vault Dweller from Fallout, and a Mega Man X in a pear tree. Oh, Jesus Christ, we're done!
Congratulations!
With a final edition of 15, we have reached our final verdict of
424.
What a journey this has been. For all you assholes saying that the bosses should be added because they're playable through mods, no. If they aren't playable through a legit means that isn't mods or glitches, that doesn't count. There's no way that would ever be the case in... God damn it. Yes, if you were one of the absolute maniacs like me who 100% completed World of Light, you probably remember this fight. No, your eyes don't deceive you. That's you, the player, playing as Master Hand for a fight against every playable character in the game. It's a one-off situation, but it's completely legit. As such, we have to add Master Hand to our tally for a final result of
425.
Wow! Incredible!
When we started this journey, you all probably thought, how would we be able to play as more than 89 fighters? Hopefully this answered your question. As exhausting as it was, I'm happy we took this little journey and figured it all out. I think I might even want to try this with the older Smash titles as well. It should definitely be easier to work our way backwards compared to the Herculean task this was. What do you think? I'm just one frankly stupid guy. And I'm sure I screwed something up along the way. Did I count something I shouldn't have? Did I leave out something important that should be added? I'm pretty certain there's some amendments that will need to be made as more people look into things themselves. I try to be fairly thorough with my research, but of course I'm more intimately familiar with some series over others. Let me know in the comments any changes I should make and why. Thanks for watching this long, and please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'd appreciate any help I can get over on Patreon. As a patron, you'll be able to have your name in the credits as well as some saying what the next video should be. Thanks again, and don't forget to wake the windfish.